If you'd like to store a large amount of saw blades in a small amount of space, you might consider building one of these, a saw blade storage cabinet. Now, the height of the cabinet determines how many blades you can store. This cabinet will hold 6. If you have fewer blades, just make the sides shorter. If you have more, make the sides taller. Now, each blade is nestled in a pull-out tray, and the teeth of the blade are protected by these custom cutouts. Now, each tray fits into a groove cut in the sides of the cabinet. Now, there's a rabbet on the end to accept the top and bottom. Now, the only other joinery you have to deal with is another rabbet on the back side, and that's to accept the masonite back. Once that's done, all you have to do is glue and screw the cabinet together. Well, with that complete, you can begin work on making the trays. Now, the trays are made out of 2 layers of 1/4-inch hardboard. Now, there's a cutout in the top layer to protect the blade. Well, let's get started making the cutout. Well, the next step is to cut out the circular opening for the blade. Now, to do that, I'm going to use a router and a trammel. Now, the router I've chosen is a palm or trim router. I really like using these. They're lightweight and real easy to maneuver. Now, the trammel is nothing more than a piece of hardboard with a hole drilled on one end for the router bit to come through. At the other end, there's another small hole drilled for the pivot pin, and in this case, it's just a nail. Now, the pivot pin fits into a hole drilled in the center of the blank, and the distance from the pin to the outside of the router bit determines the size of the opening. Well, speaking of the opening, you want to make sure the size of the opening so that it's slightly larger than the saw blade. That's going to make it a lot easier to get out later. Well, I do have a bit of a problem here, though. When I start routing, I'm going to route all the way through this blank, and when I do, the 2 pieces are going to separate and probably ruin the cut. And I really don't want to route into the top of the workbench. So the solution is a piece of rigid foam insulation like I have here. This is going to raise the workpiece up off the bench, so I'm not going to route into it. And a couple pieces of double-sided tape are going to allow me to place the blank there, press it down. Now the inside and the outside aren't going to move around when I route. The only other thing I've done is drilled a clearance hole right here. Well, now all I have to do is drop the router bit into the clearance hole, push it up against the side, find my pivot hole there, push the pin down tight. Now all I have to do is turn on the router and start routing. Now the trammel will pivot around the pin, and the router will cut a perfect circular opening. Now I just keep rotating around until I reach the clearance hole. Well, there, the routing's done. Now I can remove the router, pop up the top piece, there we go. And now all I have to do is glue it to a bottom piece. Well, after the trays are glued up, all that's left is to drill some holes. Now there's a hole here in the center to allow you to push the blade up, and some finger holes here to allow you to slide it in and out.
Hey, Terry.
Hi, Dave.
You know, that little saw blade storage chest is a great idea.
Well, the trays move in and out real easily, and all you have to do is pop up a blade and you're ready to go.
Well, you know, speaking of easy, here's the blade storage I chose for my shop. Just a simple plywood rack that holds 6 saw blades.
You know what I like is you can see the blades, but they're still separated.
Yeah, you know, the only challenging thing in this one is aligning those slots in each side.
Well, that starts by drilling some starter holes at the bottom of the slot.
So I went ahead and laid out those hole locations in one of the side pieces.
Well, the easiest way to do it now is to drill through both pieces at one time.
And to do that, just going to use a piece of double-faced tape and go ahead and stick those sides together, just like that.
Well, now you can go ahead and drill a starter hole at the bottom of the slot.
Yeah, and I've got a pair of sides that have those holes already drilled out at the right locations.
And all you need is a bevel gauge like this, and you can lay out your slot locations, and then you can cut them out with a jigsaw or a bandsaw.
Yeah, you know, and either one will work, but I'm going to head over to the bandsaw to be sure that I get nice, clean, straight cuts. You know, cutting these slots on the bandsaw is really a straightforward process, as long as you pay a little attention to the layout. And I'll show you what I mean. Here I've laid out the slots on what will be the left side of the case. And as I cut, each time I work my way across from slot to slot, I'm going to eventually run into the bandsaw post over here. I might not hit it, but it's going to be very hard to control the workpiece. So I laid everything out on what will be the right side of the case. That way, as I cut each slot, it moves away from the post, and I don't get any interference at all. So with everything laid out, I'm ready to start cutting. To cut each slot, all I need to do is start cutting and follow the layout line, keep working my way down until I reach the hole at the end. Then I'll pull the workpiece back to back the saw blade out. Move to the other side, cut down that side of the slot in the exact same way. Well, Terry, there you go. I got those slots all cut.
Well, let's take a look. Well, they line up perfectly.
Yeah, now all we have to do is attach a back to those sides using a few screws.
And the rack's ready to hang on a wall.
Woodsmithplans.com. Hundreds of professional, high-quality woodworking plans right at your fingertips. Every single plan is presented as an easy-to-download digital package that includes pages of step-by-step instructions, full-color photos, illustrations, and exploded views, retail sources for hardware and supplies, plus a cutting diagram and materials list. Many plans offer handy video overviews and guides. Plus, we're proud to offer our plans in both standard and metric. Everything is here, from gorgeous heirloom furniture projects to handy shop projects and upgrades, clever, cost-effective storage solutions, as well as weekend projects and accessories that are great for gifts. All fully searchable and categorized for easy browsing. Woodsmithplans.com, everything you need for building fine woodworking projects.